Welcome. This is What You're Reading, Coach. Thank you so much for joining in today. I am ecstatic about today's episode. The reason why I'm so ecstatic about today's episode is because I have a gift for y'all. The book. We're going to go into chapter 2 of the 7 spiritual laws of success. But before we get started with that, make sure that you're following us on Instagram at Jewels and Tools Podcast and also at Coach Kel Inspires. Also make sure that you're subscribe, like, and turn on your notifications for the Coach Kel channel on YouTube. All you have to do is search Coach Kel, or you can search Jewels and Tools Podcast, or you can search What You're Reading, Coach, and they'll all pop up. This episode is, I'm so proud. So give you a little bit of history on me. From Jacksonville. I have a very great family. Good family. And for a very long time, I think 10 years. I thought it was 10, she was 12. She was 1, yeah. All right, so for maybe like the first 10 or 11 years, it was only me and one other individuals as kids in our family. She is my sister cousin. We're cousins, but we have always, especially when we were younger, interacted like brother and sister. She has released. Are y'all ready for it? Are y'all ready? Spirit spoken. That's my cousin, y'all. Like, I ain't talking about like all the way down the line. This is my first cousin. We lived with each other growing up, on and off. She has always been a person that I have looked up to just because of the way that she carries herself. And she released the book, I think last month. I got my copy in the mail last week. But I've actually been sitting on it because I didn't even want to call her or text her or let her know that I had received the book. This is how she's gonna learn that I received the book. Her name is Randi J Norman, or Randi J Norman, excuse me if I gave away your J. She is my Janae. I don't call her Randy as much as all, because I got a daddy named Randy, her daddy named Randy. Got too many Randys. So she's always been Janae, or my Nene. And I'm so proud of the book. I read it all in one day. It's not a big huge read, but it's a purposeful read. The book is awesome. I didn't even know. I think I knew that she wrote poetry, when we were younger. I didn't know that this had become a passion of hers. And then reading the book, because when she said she was releasing a book, I was just like, "Cuz, releasing a book?" And then when I saw when she released the cover and I had her first ones, I saw that it was spirit spoken. So I figured that it was, something around spoken word or poetry. But it's so well put together. I love it. I like it a lot. But the book in itself, she is a very she's like a walking, breathing success story. I know most of her. I can't say that I know most of her testimony, but I think I could say that I'm familiar with her testimonies, and just to see how she has just blossomed into this creative force, it's awing. I'm just like, when I see some of the stuff that she's doing. Growing up, I think that creatively, kids have to go through a process of trying to find their voice, and what it is a maturing process. And when you're trying to find that creative voice, I think she did an excellent job of providing the spoken word for creating that creative voice and creating the outlet for your creative voice. But what she does, which I think is remarkable, that I haven't seen done too much, because when it comes to poetry, I'm a big poetry fan, but I have never seen anyone do this. For each poem that she wrote, she actually paired with it like a backstory, which kind of puts you in the mind frame and prepares you for what you're about to read. And it was just reading the book. I was just like, yo, like, she did this. And like I said, it's not a huge read, but I hope I don't get in trouble for this. I hope I don't get, cuz don't sue me. All right, you know I ain't got it. Don't call them people on me. But I do want to read what I think right now, my favorite right now. Yeah, I'm gonna read a little bit of my favorite right now, and then I'll make sure I give you guys the information, where to go purchase and support the book. Okay, gotta do that for me. Gotta support. I'm just so proud of her. You know what I'm saying? And my proud is one thing, but looking at the quality of her work is another. I really like. And when it comes to poetry was my first love when it came to reading, because it was short enough and compressed enough to where I would want to read it. So that was like my first exposure to reading, was like poetry, and most definitely was my first experience to actually writing. At one point in my life, I thought I would be a poet, or I would be like spoken word. Like that was like a dream that I had in the back of my head, you know. But Def Poetry Jam had everybody thinking like that, and I used to listen to a lot of Erykah Badu. So, you know, and there's a couple of ladies out there that know I can, you know, do my thing with the pen, but not on this level. Like, okay, I'm just gonna get into it. I'm starting to go off on a tangent. So, this is called A Diamond in the Rough, a spoken word. I usually don't read out loud to people, so this is all new for me. So, in solitude, the night is quiet. I sit and remember how I used to enjoy the solitude and quiet of the night. This is what this is really about, huh? Getting back to those things I used to do. The things that spoke to my heart and mind. The things that rounded me out. Made me fluctuated and multidimensional. the diamond in the rough. In the rough, lost. Not knowing you are a diamond. In your natural state, at its purest and most valuable. Ready to be polished. Ready to be polished and fine-tuned. Becoming what you are while acknowledging what you won't ever be. I gotta hit you with that one again. Becoming what you are while acknowledging what you won't ever be. Ordinary, diamond, special, unique. It's a process. Don't hate it. Don't judge it. Don't overthink it. Just do and be and allow the old unnecessary layers to be sloughed off. Who are you? You gotta stop it right there. I can't give you no more of that. I can't give you no more of that. But if you like that, make sure you go to Randi, RandiJNorman.com. Alright? Make sure you do that. RandiJNorman.com. And that's Randi with an I. Her daddy is with a Y. And my daddy is with a Y. So it's Randi, RandiJ Norman.com. And I'm checking it just to make sure. I don't want to be lying to y'all. And yep, it is RandiJNorman.com. So it's RandiJNorman.com. And that's where you can actually pick up your copy. Do yourself a favor. Pick it up. If you have like teenage kids, this is a book that they need to read. This is something that they need to read, because while reading the book, it was almost like a time machine for me, because while reading the book, with some of the things that she wrote, especially with the backstories, with me having an intimate look at her life, I can see that I really think that a lot of this book, the seed was planted during those years, like her teenage years. And because us being us, I think fear takes control a lot of the times, and just life. I think the seed for this was planted then. And so I think this is the fruit of that seed that was planted then. So I really think that this is going to be a great book for teenagers and young adults. So once again, Spirit Spoken, Spoken Word Journey of Faith, by Randi J Norman. She's the author, and she's also my cousin. This was a great book. Make sure that you get it. Once again, RandiJNorman.com. So now that we've talked about that, I do want to get into where we left off on last week. So we have been talking about this book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And last we went over the introduction. And you remember I told you guys I usually don't read introductions, but the introduction was fire in this book, so I actually read it. And then we went over the first law. And now with the first law, we really were talking about self-orientation. And then we talked about the power of the different orientations, because we were talking about the pure potentiality, learning how to find silence, learning how to spend time in nature, learning how to not be so obsessed with what other people think. So that's what we actually went through in chapter 1. So chapter 2 is the law of giving. Once again, chapter 2 is the law of giving. So, excuse me. But if any of you have ever read Think and Grow Rich, one of the 17 principles of success that are covered in Think and Grow Rich is the ability to give freely, and this actually picked up where that kind of left off for me. So to start with this review for this chapter, I want to pose a question. And I want you guys to really think about this question over the week, over the next couple of days until Friday when I drop the next episode. I want you guys to think this week about this question. And if you feel moved to, make sure that you comment or DM me or something like that to let me know what you come up with and what your answer is. So the question is, are you willing to give away the very thing that you're seeking to receive? I'll say it again. Are you willing to give away the very thing that you're seeking to receive? So this is what this chapter is about. The law of giving, it says this: the universe operates through dynamic exchange. All right, dynamic exchange. Giving and receiving are different aspects to the flow of energy and space. So I want you guys to remember dynamic exchange and giving and receiving. That's the flow of the dynamic change of the universe, right? So we're always going through an exchange of either receiving or giving at all times. At all times, you are either giving something or you are receiving something. So if it's something that you want, are you willing to give away the very thing that you're looking to receive? And it sounds kind of creepy and all that, but we're gonna go through a journey. All right. Now, so one of the things that it says is that no matter what happens in life, ages pass, and still, so there's a poem at the beginning of it. And so basically what the poem is talking about is that in order to make room in a cup to receive any greater portion, it first has to be emptied out. So if you are living in the process and you are like vigorously seeking something in your life, let's say, everybody talks about the same thing. Everybody talk about money. So let's talk about money. Let's say you're in a point in your life where you want to acquire great amounts of money, right? You want to build great amounts of monetary wealth. Part of that, in order for it to happen, the exchange that has to happen is that you're going to have to, at some point, if you want to really get to a high level, you're going to have to give some of that money away. And it's crazy because, especially in the United States, because if the more money you give, you can put it in a tax shelter. So, there are a lot of universal laws that are placed in our tax laws, but that's a whole nother conversation. So, the second spiritual law of success, the law of giving, this law could also be called the law of giving and receiving because the universe operates through dynamic exchange. That's how the universe works. You put something out, you get it back. It's similar to reaping and sowing. If I sow a seed, I have to give the seed to the earth. And if I give the seed to the earth and then follow that up with giving my time and patience and nurturing, the earth will then in turn give me fruit. And now what do? Now I can eat that fruit. That's basically what the law of giving is. Now, one thing that, in order for this to actually work in order for this to actually work, you actually have to, you can't just give and receive. Your mind actually has to be in the right place. So if you've ever attended church and they have the saying, don't give grudgingly, there's perspective behind that, because if I'm giving unwillingly, I'm actually suppressing the law of giving and receiving. Because if it's something that you give to somebody and it gotta have conditions, and you really don't want to do it, you're doing it because you feel like you have to, and things of that nature, the odds of you receiving the same thing back are in greater portion is very unlikely. So this process is really about opening up and softening up your giving hand. Some people walk their entire lives like this. My grandfather is like this. My grandfather is not I'll put it this way. I think my grandfather could have been a multi-millionaire if he learned how to give freely without a lot of otherness. I'll put it that way, without a lot of otherness. And I think we all know people like that. So I use my grandfather as one example. Another example that I use is my aunt and uncle. My uncle is a vascular surgeon. And my aunt, she is, I think both of my aunts, they're very good. And my mom has learned over the years, they have learned how to master finances, right? So, but my aunt, there's never been a time in my life that I could call my aunt and my uncle and say that I wanted something that they didn't provide. And I think that's what keeps the revolving door of financial freedom around them, because they don't hold grudgingly. My uncle's way of thinking, my Uncle Maurice's way of thinking is so chill, so nonchalant. Like, I think I maybe think like he got on me like once or twice my entire life, and it was just because he was just like, all right, cuz, what you gonna do? But I've seen this work. And so in the chapter, it talks a lot about affluence, and I didn't know this, but the word affluence, the root word is afflure, and that means to flow to. So your affluence. So you have affluence and you have influence. Affluence, when you're using the law correctly, it actually can open up for you to receive anything that you think of in life. But you have to make sure that the dynamic is being processed correctly. You can't give grudgingly. You can't be bitter in your giving, and you don't give with the intentions of receiving. And I think that's where a lot of people get a lot of stuff taken over twisted. They give because they're expecting to receive. That's even something that I had to improve on as I got older. And one of the biggest things that it says in this chapter to me, there's a paragraph that starts with, in every seed is a promise of a forest. In every seed there is a promise of, it's not just a promise of a forest, there in every seed there is a promise of 1,000 forests. How G is that? So in every seed that you give, every time that you provide somebody with something of value, it doesn't mean that it has to be money. It doesn't mean that it has to be material. Sometimes you can just give somebody a word of encouragement. Sometimes you can just give somebody a word of prayer. Sometimes you can just give somebody your time. And from that, you can have 1,000 forests. You never know how. And this is something that I've been, since I read the chapter, that I've been attempting to do. So later on in the chapter, he says that you want to build the practice of giving something to every single person you come in contact with. I'm going to say that again. You want to build the practice of giving something to every single person that comes in contact with you, right? Because whether we know it or not, we already are doing that. Every time you come in contact with somebody, you're giving them something. You're either giving them a positive experience, a negative experience. You're either giving people words of wisdom, or you giving them foolishness. And that's the way that I've been tackling, looking at this for the last couple of weeks, since I've been trying to practice this. And the biggest thing for me was trying to understand that, because I do think that I am a giver. But what I had to understand was that everything that I give, it does not have to be tied to a material thing or a monetary value. Sometimes just a simple hello with a smile can give somebody enough energy to finish out their day. And that's what he talks about in this chapter. And those are the things that I've been trying to look at and make sure that I'm doing a better part of giving people that I come in contact with something positive every single time. I went to the drive-thru the other day, and many times, like when you go through a drive-thru, no, it was a drive-thru. I picked up some food. Many times when you go through, restaurants and things of that nature, just because of the environment, employees can have very poor attitudes. I'm talking about poor. And I particularly hate it when I go to restaurants and receive poor customer service. I hate it everywhere I go, but specifically restaurants. So I go into this restaurant and I've ordered a pretty sizable order, and the front desk attendant, whoever she is, she doesn't say hello. She doesn't say hi. All she says is, "How can I help you?" And so I was already kind of turned off by the way she walked up. But I'm also practicing not judging, right? So she walks up, and I can tell she does not want to be there. Like, everybody know going into somebody's job if they want to be there or not. And clearly she did. She had enough. She had enough. And I feel it. I've been there. So I tell her I'm here to pick up the food. And she just turns around and walks off. She doesn't say hold on. I'm big on like customer service, especially retail, because I worked in retail for so long. So she comes back. There's a couple of people behind me. And so she said, "Can you move so I can get their order?" So I throw the hands up, move out the way. So while I'm doing this, right, I'm like, one side of me, I'm telling myself, I shouldn't pay her. I should just leave this food and walk out, because I hadn't paid her for my food yet, because they hadn't fixed it yet. And I said, and I thought about this, and my inner voice, God, whatever you want to say, was like, nope, you're gonna buy your food, you're going to tip her, but you're gonna have a conversation with her that's gonna improve her going forward. So, and that's exactly what I did. So, she finished saying to everybody else. I walked out, once we had some, I said, hey, I want to talk to you for a second. So I gave her, I gave her $10. I gave her $10. I said, I'm giving you this tip. And so she was like, oh, thank you. That's so nice. I said, but this tip is not for the service that you gave me today. Whole face changed. So she was like, what you mean? Like, I think she was trying to, I think she thought I was gonna try to holler at her or something, and I was just like, nah. I said, what this tip is for is that I'm gonna be coming in here more often, and anytime that I'll see you, I want you to give me the best customer service experience that I've had. And if you do that every time I come in here, I'll make sure you get another $10. So she's still trying to figure out, like, she kind of shook about it. So I was like, look, I worked in retail for a long time. I know how frustrating retail can be. I was like, but there are some things that I want you to work at. And so she was like, what? I was like, for one, make sure that you actually speak and greet everybody. She was like, I spoke to you. I was like, no, you didn't speak to me. You asked me, how can I help you? That's a phrase, but speak to every person. You know how it is to speak to somebody. Speak to them. Say hello. How are you doing? Things of that nature. So she said, okay. I said, the next thing, you have to learn now. This is something that I've always said with customer service. Especially right now, you need to learn how to smile with your eyes, because everybody's mouth is covered up. So she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, you have to learn how to smile with your eyes. If you want people to pay attention to you, you pay attention to people. So look at people. You can look at somebody with enthusiasm. You can look at somebody and they can tell that you're smiling up under your mask. But the way that you were looking at me, I was like, for one, you barely even looked at me. For two, when you did look at me, I can tell that you had a mean mug going up under there. And so she was like, you're right. And then the last thing I told her, I was like, look, let your best personality be in here at all times. And so I explained that to her. So in that way, it was a couple of things that I did in that exchange. One, I was able to give her something of monetary value. All right, because for one, I appreciate the people, especially in like restaurants and things of that nature. They're taking a big risk. So I appreciated her for that. So that's one thing. So I was able to give her that, but then I was able to give her something that will add value to her life. So actually today went to the same restaurant, and when I called, I wasn't sure if it was her that I was speaking to when I placed my order, but when I was getting ready to walk inside, I guess the other girl was finna come up front, and she said, no, I got this. I read her lips. She was like, no, I got this. And so when I walked in, she greeted me. She said, hey, Coach Kel. I was like, how you doing today? She already had my food. She already had my food ready. And then she asked me, she was like, did I do a good job with smiling with my eyes today? I said, you did a perfect job. She got a $10 tip. So true indeed, like I gave her a couple of different things, but also through my giving, there's going to be, I can tell there's going to be some sort of relationship there. And when I say relationship, whenever I'm there, we're going to be able to have good interactions. And to me, those are the places where I like to spend my money. I like to spend my money in places where I can have positive interactions with the people that work there. It just makes you feel better. It just makes you feel like a better consumer. And that has been one of the things that I've always tried to get companies to coach employees on. I've always wanted any business undertaking I've ever done, any company that I work for, my whole thing is to turn customers into clients. Because the client relationship, when they want something and it's in your service area, guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna think of you first. And when I say service area, let's say it's a restaurant. Let's say when it comes to food, most foods and most restaurants are the same. Most barbecue tastes like barbecue, and I'm talking about the base. People might have the different sauces and everything. They pretty much all sell the same size, but what the people continue to come back for is the customer service and the experience. Those are the things that companies should pay more attention to: the experience and turning those customers into clients. Because even with my peanut business and the crabs and everything, I push myself to provide a Fortune 500 service, better than Fortune 500 service, and I'm only selling peanuts because I want my product to be great. I want your experience to be great. Because if the product is great and the experience is great, when somebody asks you about it, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna give them a great review every single time. I don't care what's going on. You're gonna do that every time. So, just a couple of little things that he said here, and this was key for me. He said, in fact, anything that is valuable in life only multiplies when it is given. So if there's anything that you hold, and I've seen this in action, and I didn't know it was action. Anytime that you hold something valuable and you want more of that thing, give that thing away and watch how it comes back to you. Biblical principles, tenfold. You already know what it is. It's just time to start putting some of these things in action. So, years ago, I worked for G4S. I worked at a juvenile detention facility, and one of the ways that I connected with the kids is one of the ways that I always connect with kids are my sneakers, are my tennis shoes, and that's what really got me in the door with them. That's what helped me build my rapport with them. And so it was always something. So they would be excited. They would just wait for me to see what shoe I was gonna wear next. And I had probably just left Champs maybe like 2 or 3 years, so the shoe game was still like impeccable. And at that time I was still actively buying shoes, And one of the things that had started happening to me was that because I wasn't working at Champs anymore, and with retail stores and sneaker shopping, that it's like a 6 to 9 month cycle to like everything's gonna change in those stores. Like the employees, you'll be lucky if there's still a key holder or a manager that still recognizes you. Like that's just the cycle. That's just the turnaround of it, right? So I had went through all of my cycles, so now it had become kind of difficult for me to get sneakers. Like I was having to like wait in lines, like, and I'm not patient. I had never waited in lines before. That was part of the sneaker experience that I didn't have the experience. So when it started happening to me, I was just like, man, this tough. Like it was tough. And then it was starting to get unsafe, you know, because the way that they were doing things were just stupid. Like, to me, it was just stupid, and it was putting people in harm. You know, because me coming up in the area that I grew up, I know what people will do for sneakers, and so if I'm going to get sneakers, I'm taking certain precautions to make sure that me and my sneakers get back to where we're going. And it just became a very uncomfortable thing. Like it didn't feel comfortable anymore. So one of the jits, he was from Orlando, when he got his release date paperwork, he usually get it for like 45 days out, like they last 45 days. So when he got the letter, I came to work that night, he was like, yo, Cal, yo, man, I got my release date. I was like, bet. He was like, yo, check this out though. I was like, what? He was like, man, I want to be fresh when I get out. I was like, all right, so what you saying? What you want me to get you a shirt or something? Like, what you want? Nah, he was like, man, you ain't got to go buy me none, cause I know we were the same size. Like, I was like, hold on, whoa. Like, he lost me when he was like, I know we were the same size. I already knew where he was going. And I was like, hold on. I was like, nah, cuz. He was like, you don't even know what I'm going to ask you. I was like, what? He was like, man, let me get a pair of shoes. He was like, I don't want you to buy no shoes. I want a pair of shoes that you wear. And I was like, nah, no bueno. He was like, nah, like, you got a pair of, it was the forest green foam posits. Forest green foam posits, one of my favorite pair of foam posits. I might have worn them like 3 or 4 times, but he was just like, yo, like, for real, Kel, like, if you could do that for me, like, man, that'll change my whole life. Like, I was like, man, now you just trying to finesse me. And I told him, I was like, nah, I'll make sure you're straight, but nah, you ain't doing it. Yeah, nah, I ain't. That's not part of my ministry. No, but I told him. And so, like, it went from him asking me every day. He was asking me every day, man, coach, man, you gonna let me get them shoes, man? Don't wear them shoes, man. Don't wear them shoes, because I want you to give them to him. I don't want you to wear them no more. Like, he would tell me that every night before I left. So that went on for probably about 2 weeks. Then after that 2 weeks, I had been reading with them. I was doing a class with them, and we were reading Think and Grow Rich. And so I was always telling them to speak things in existence. So what he started doing, instead of him asking me for the shoes every day, he started saying, man, you gonna give me them pine greens. Like, as soon as he would see me, he wouldn't speak. He was like, man, you gonna give me them pine greens. And walk off. And so he did that for a couple of weeks. But his last week, he would make sure that every time that he saw me, he would tell somebody else, man, coach finna hook me up, man, he gonna give me them pine greens. I worked on his last day. Well, actually, I worked the night that he was, because usually they get released early in the morning. So I came in at my regular time, and I knew I was going to end up having to work 2 shifts or something. So before I left the house, I did not want to part with them shoes, but I gave him the shoes. He was getting ready to leave. People were finna come pick him up. And I could tell that he was getting like kind of, because I didn't give them to him. Like, he asked me, I'm like, I'm gonna give you my shoes, cuz. So I was getting ready to leave, and he was getting ready to leave. They was getting ready to do his transport. I cleared everything but the powers that be, and I couldn't do it in front of the other kids because that would have caused a whole bunch of foolishness. So I waited around, and when they got ready to put him in this transport, I not only gave him the shoes, I put the shoes on him. And sent him about his way. Now, so I gave, at first it was grudgingly, but he made such an impression by practicing what I was preaching that I had no choice but to give it to him, right? So once I gave it to him, I think I've only had like 1 or 2 issues getting any pair of shoes that I want. Like if I really want the shoe, I be getting them off the sneaker app, and people be like, "How you be getting the sneakers off the sneaker app, man? You got a bot. And I'm like, no, man, there's no bot. I've already purchased these. I purchased these 5 years ago. You just ain't know it. You ain't have the release date. So like really, like if you really want to practice this, the first thing you have to become mindful. You have to be conscious of your interactions. That's the first step. Once you become conscious of your interactions, then you start to understand. Then you need to start to look for the opportunity to give. In every interaction we have with someone, we have the opportunity to give. All right. It could be a prayer. It could be a word of encouragement. It can be $1. It could be a vast array of things. But get into the actual practice of actually finding the opportunity of what you can give. And because once you become more conscious of it, I really believe, like what I've been having lately is that it's not me finding the opportunity, it's God communicating to me what's the opportunity for me to give what is needed versus giving what I have. Because if I give what I have, I'm a human. I'm always going to feel, I might one day feel like I don't have enough of something. But if I hear, it could be the same thing. If God can tell me to give, God can communicate to me that someone need $100, and I'll give it freely. But if I come up with, oh, it's 100, oh, they need money, I might only give 5. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm learning how to really just get from out of here and just wait, find the opportunity and give what they want. So if you really want to become wealthy, if you really want to start a positive circulation, if you really want to start a positive circulation of material wealth in your life, this is one of the things that you're going to have to adopt in your daily practices. All right, so that's actually chapter 2 of the 7 laws of spiritual success. Once again, the law of giving and receiving. All right, so thank you for listening. Make sure that you tune in on Thursday. We're gonna go ahead. I might do 2 chapters on this because there's a lot of books that I need to get to, that I want to get to. I'm trying to figure out what I should do next. Matter of fact, we'll make it a vote. So I'll have it posted on Friday, what we're going to read next, and I'll let you guys vote on it. All right, so thank you so much for listening. Make sure that you like the video, share the video, and then also make sure you check out Jewels and Tools podcast. It'll be up on Instagram and then all of the podcast sites, so Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, Anchor, there's another one too, and then we're trying to get on podcast one too. So all right, So thank you so much for tuning in. Y'all have a great rest of your week and rock it out. I don't know what else to say. Bye.